Continuing with the outline on the second chapter, the I Am and the Principle of Assiety, going with the subtopic of the Holy Ghost or Spirit. In this video, I want to speak about the gifts of the Spirit, or as I argued in the previous video, supernatural abilities. These are the main items that Paul the Apostle was going on about when he was writing his letters. He spoke about all the power and all these mystical experiences coming from the Spirit. Well, Jesus mainly spoke about the Father, mainly spoke about the kingdom, but indeed he did speak about this Spirit as well, mainly as some sort of figure who would know everything and who would remind the disciples of everything he had taught them. As I argued before, this seems to be part of consciousness, because Jesus says that this Spirit is in us and has been living with us, but we cannot see it. So this speaks about a metaphysical entity that, quote unquote, knows everything and will help us along our way. Now, when it comes to Paul, he goes further into this Spirit, and he attaches some qualities that he calls gifts of the Spirit. As I argued before, this can be also translated, instead of gifts of the Spirit, which sounds better in a Christian narrative, this can translate into simply as supernatural abilities. So as I said before, it's not about bearded men and fairies in the sky or whatsoever. These are merely interpretations, and it all comes from quote-unquote visions, from these, as I argued, these mystical experiences that these writers had. In the case of Paul, when he goes into some of the items that they speak about him in the scriptures, it seems that he had this mystical experience, this altered state of consciousness experience. And of course, right now in this part of the outline, I'm going into Christianity, but these same ideas, the same concepts, they correlate to other mythologies. These visionaries, these prophecies that Paul and some of the other saints have are the same that some of the other mythologies have, in the form of oracles, in the form of these ascetic figures who go into trance-like states, and they come forward with some sort of knowledge, with some sort of experience that they really have to share. And today we have modern evidence of the same thing through psychedelic experiences and through altered state of consciousness experiences. People coming from near-death experiences have this a set of experiences where they speak about the same items that we can find in ancient scriptures. And Paul gives us a very deep look into his experience through the Holy Spirit. So in this video, I'm just gonna try to go into the similarities and see where is the correlation between the newer experiences and the ancient experiences, specifically the experience of Paul the Apostle. Before I move forward, I would like to remind you that if you want to join the growing discussion on consciousness and would like to be notified on the latest scientific discoveries and theories surrounding this topic and how they connect to ancient mythologies and philosophies, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, as I'll try to upload at least one video per week as I continue with the outline. The passage goes like this: "Now to each one, the manifestation of the Spirit is given for the common good. To one, there is given through the Spirit a message of wisdom, to another, a message of knowledge, by means of the same Spirit, to another, faith by the same Spirit, to another, gifts of healing, by that one Spirit, to another, miraculous powers, to another, prophecy, to another, distinguishing between spirits, to another, speaking in different kinds of tongues, and to still another, the interpretation of such tongues. All these are the work of one and the same Spirit, He distributes them to each one just as he determines. 1 Corinthians 12, 7, 11. One thing I really want to mention when it comes to this spirit, as we can see, Paul speaks about it as if the spirit was everything that is some sort of goal in its own right. Is because of the spirit that all of this comes forward. And of course, Jesus mentioned that this spirit knows everything and is with us, so we can start to sort of see what they were speaking about. This spirit seems to be some sort of higher self, some part of our very consciousness, as Jesus says, that it is with us and it has been living with us all along, but we cannot see it. So it's not physical. This is not a physical experience. This is somewhere else. In the passage, it's also mentioned that these manifestations given by the Spirit are for the common good. It is a theme that this is for some sort of improvement. Paul also speaks about following the quote-unquote way of love. He wants, he's looking to some sort of awakening, to some sort of realization. This is what the whole thing is about when it comes to the Spirit. He goes on to say that the Spirit gives a message of wisdom, to another a message of knowledge, to another a message of faith. So this wisdom, this faith, this knowledge can seem just like simple, good ideas that people may have, some sort of epiphany, some sort of realization. This is what modern Christians believe it to be, to just get an idea of how to act in the world, and they say that they've been touched by the Spirit and so on, but it actually goes deeper than this. In modern experiences, altered state of consciousness experiences, we have people who go and receive some sort of message. The message comes from what they call entities, or what they call strong feelings, strong emotions. In some of the manuals and some of the writings made by the psychedelic communities, they speak about seeing the universe being created, about being guided through an experience where they suddenly realize what it's all about. They realize that we are not individuals, that we share the same consciousness, and this comes over and over and over with the experiences. This is a repeating experience. So this is perhaps in this passage, he is speaking about this sort of wisdom, this sort of knowledge. It's just knowledge. Also, some of the people who go through this altered state of consciousness experience, they explain that they cannot put their experiences into words. They speak about an experience that is totally outwardly. That is, there are no concepts known by physical entities, which we are, to explain what the experience was all about. So it's some sort of what I call sudden knowledge. I will revisit this theme as it's further along the line with some of the more complicated feats that Jesus did at the end of the whole story in the scriptures. But this is indeed a very specific pattern that they follow. So this somewhat links to the idea that I was speaking about in the previous video. It's not about bearded men in the sky and fairies and all this craziness that is in the scriptures. We have modern reports of these experiences, these altered states of consciousness experiences, where people with all the technology, with all the education, with all the knowledge that we have today, they cannot put into words. Much less back then would they be able to comprehend these experiences. And perhaps this is the reason why we have all these stories about gods and angels and all these things that seem quite fantastic. But if we go straight into the stories, as I will approach in the future, the story of Ezekiel, where in his vision he saw angels. And some of the artistic depictions of these angels come in the form of mechanical figures, what would resemble more to mechanical figures, circles and with eyes in them and wings, and he in his story he explains how they move in the sky, like in very particular ways. So he is describing something quite bizarre, and I think that it is very likely that they were trying to explain all of these experiences in a language that they understood, speaking about angels and gods and mythological figures. But today we have these experiences, and in the manuals of the psychedelic community, they speak about mechanical elves, they speak about DMT entities and these fractals and all sorts of things that resemble more to pictures of what the quantum level reality might be. So there are a lot of assumptions as to what all of this means from the psychedelic community, and they're trying to explain what's going on, what their experience was. And I think this happened also for Paul. He tried to explain what his experience was, and he came up with these gifts of the spirit. And with when you go straight into the scriptures, you can see that he has very specific knowledge about the functioning of reality. He speaks about men having physical bodies as well as spiritual bodies. He speaks about planes. He speaks when I say planes, I mean planes of reality, planes of existence. I will approach this in the future of the outline, because I keep going on about Paul the Apostle. But it all seems that instead of being supernatural abilities and things of science fiction, it seems that these people who are going through these experiences are trying to explain a much larger dynamic of reality, which in the beginning it might seem too fantastic or too outwardly. But as evidence stacks, as the reports stacks, and everything keeps talking about the same thing, we have to look into it deeper. Now, this is just the first of the gifts of the spirit that Paul speaks about. This is the gift of wisdom. In the next video, I will try to keep going on about these gifts and try to correlate them with some of the newer evidence or newer studies being done in the fields of extra sensory perception, also referred to as parapsychology, where we might conclude that instead of speaking about supernatural abilities, this might all be just a simple dynamic of the larger truth at hand. If you're on the path of finding the truth about reality and our purpose as humans on Earth, the information that I have to share concerns you. After a lifetime of research in philosophies ranging from Buddhism to the occult, I've encountered themes and patterns along some baffling information that is beginning to be seriously studied by science. Our Rational Divine Outline, The Ghost of Jesus, is the first iteration of this project, where I analyze the message of Jesus without dogmatism, fanaticism, or religious bias. You can find my work available on Amazon on the link below. If you find this work valuable, consider subscribing, sharing, and following me on social media, as it'll help others in the same path to find this information. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.